Welcome back to the Cat Channel, where a guy stands in front of whiteboards and rambles about hockey while you watch the cat sleep. Alright, so yesterday I did a video on 11 players that I think could have breakthrough seasons. And that features players who are younger, right? Players who haven't really hit the big time yet. So I want to do 12 bounce back candidates. Players that I don't think scored enough this year and that I think should be able to bounce back. It's almost impossible to predict that though. Today, we've got 12. So yesterday it was 11 players on the breakthrough list. Today it's 12 on the bounce back list because I'm an optimist and I believe in that. Now, there's no goaltenders. Goaltenders, whole other topic. I'll do probably an overachieving, underachieving goaltenders list. I'll probably go 1 through 5 on both. That's the way I'm thinking about doing it. But again, we'll see. I decided against having a goaltender on this list. I had debated about it. I thought, no, goaltenders should be on their own separate video. So, top 12. Number 12. We'll start off with a Montreal Canadian on this list. And a lot of this is going to depend on where he ends up. Because right now, Phillip Danault is property of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, Danault had an excellent season as a defensive center. I'm not going to try to argue that he didn't, because that would be crazy. But 5 goals, 19 assists, 24 points. The 24 points, that's probably about right, I guess. But the 5 goals is low. His shooting percentage was too low. I'm going to go ahead and say that he should score in the double digits. I'm going to say maybe 12, 15 goals next year. I think that 5 is just too low. He will get more opportunities. And I understand in the playoffs he struggled with his scoring as well. I think that's going to turn around for him next year. He's never going to be a big scorer, but 5 goals in 53 games is just too low, at least in my opinion. Number 11 is a player I'm a big fan of who had a really rough year offensively. Arizona. Yep. Lawson Crouse. I love Crouse's work ethic. His overall numbers this year took kind of a dive. 51 games, 4 goals, 9 assists for 13 points. That's too low. That's too low for Crouse. And getting a new coach in Arizona should help the offensive numbers for a few of their players. And I'm going to go ahead and say Crouse also should always be in the double digits for goals. The work ethic's there. He's the size of a Mack truck. I checked. And yeah, Lawson Crouse, absolutely one of my favorite members of the Arizona Coyotes, who did have a rough year this year. Last year was a very good season for him. I would say somewhere in between is probably where he ends up next year. Maybe he doesn't end up getting back to the form he showed in 2019, 2020. But yeah, 4 goals in 51 games, that's too low. He should get more opportunities, and I would think the scoring comes back up. Number 10, and the reason I'm wearing a Providence jersey is because this player could end up in Providence next season if he doesn't get off to a better start. If he's a Bruin next season. My guess is by the time the season starts, he's no longer a Bruin. So, it was a rough year all around for Jake DeBrusk. You could tell him and the coach weren't on the same page. Bruce Cassidy and he definitely not seeing eye to eye on things. He ended up being a healthy scratch at points. In 41 games, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. So here's the danger. There are people who are going to overrate Jake DeBrusk. There are going to be people who underrate Jake DeBrusk. If a GM's going to make a trade with Boston to try to get DeBrusk, don't overrate him. And it's tough because I think DeBrusk can be a 20-goal scorer. I don't know. I think he bounces back next year. I don't know how much. I think 5 goals in 41 games, again, looks really low. That just doesn't feel right. And DeBrusk has more talent than that. But again, if he has a slow start out of the gate, if he's in Boston again, I wouldn't be surprised to see his contract waived and sent down to Providence next season. And so Jake DeBrusk, fingers crossed that this works out and he's able to get back to form. But again, I don't expect him to be a Bruin in October anyways, but if he is, it could be interesting. Number 9. So this is the first of a two-parter. So number 9, Patrick. I don't even have to put the last name. Everybody's already ahead of me, right? So playing for Columbus this year, he ends up playing 45 games, 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 points. That's too low. That's the whole storyline of all 12 of these players. But for Laine, maybe he never gets to that goal-scoring potential he showed early in his career. but he's still young. And I expect more out of him. And I know Tortorella expected more out of him. I know Kekalainen expected more out of him. I know there were times where Paul Maurice and Kevin Cheveldayoff expected more out of him. And maybe teammates of his have as well. So maybe this is going to be a pattern. But for me, Laine should score more next year. He should at least be a 20-goal scorer. He is a goal scorer. And he's not scoring goals. So, and again, I expect him to stay in Columbus. I have no reason to think he's necessarily going to get traded. But well, we'll see. We'll see. Because if contract talks don't go well, there will be teams lining up. There's been rumors of Florida and whatnot. If he goes to Florida, he at least scores 20 goals. That to me is an automatic. Laine will be on a line with scoring players, and he can just have his stick on the ice, and he can get 20 tap-ins a year, I would think, on that team. Number 8 is the second part of this. So for Winnipeg, on their side of things, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yep, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who coming into this season, really he wasn't bad. But, and again, these are the Winnipeg numbers. So not including the Columbus numbers, which weren't great either. 41 games, 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points. I have heard people say, is this the first trade where both teams lose? No, Columbus won the trade because they got Roslovic as well. But Pierre-Luc Dubois, it was a disappointment through most of the regular season and a lot of the postseason as well. And he had some good games here. I know, I watched him have a really good game against Vancouver, and then the next game it was back to meh. He's got to find that consistent level of play. We know he can be a very good center in the league because we saw it as recently as 2020. So we know he can do that. And I would think that whether it's with Winnipeg or somewhere else, I think he has to stay with Winnipeg, right? He has to have some sort of a bounce-back season with the Jets next year. He's too good to be scoring 8 goals in 41 games. He's too good for 20 points in 41 games. At least he's supposed to be, right? Number 7. This one's tough. I debated on where to put this one. So number 7 for St. Louis, and this is another player who may not be in St. Louis to start the season. He may be traded before the season starts. Because he's asked to be traded is the rumor. And that's Vlad Tarasenko. Vlad Tarasenko is capable of more than what he produced this season. So in 24 games, 4 goals, 10 assists, 14 points. So you're a general manager. You're negotiating with the St. Louis Blues. Do you point to those 4 goals and say, we don't think he's worth that $7.5 million unless, and then you add, they throw in a sweetener, they retain salary, or maybe you're lowballing them in trade negotiations. Or do you as a GM look and say, all right, is he healthy? You get a doctor to check him out, and he goes, yeah, his shoulder's fine. And so you ignore the 4 goals, and you think back to the kind of player he's been over his career, and you say, you know what? We will take that risk. So the general manager who says we'll take that risk would likely be the one that'd be able to make a deal that St. Louis likes. The one that's saying, I don't know, may very well have trouble. So as a fan, I think his goal scoring is, when he's healthy, fantastic. He's one of the most impressive goal scorers in the league. But is he going to be 100% healthy? Can he play an 82-game schedule? And is this 4-goal season that he just had over 24 games, is that an indicator that maybe his goal scoring is gone and he's going to be primarily a playmaker from here on? Because that changes everything, and it definitely means he's not worth the value of that contract. Number 6. Going with a capital at number 6. He had a rough year too, as they all did. But it's interesting because, of course, he was in COVID protocols twice this year, and that's Evgeny Kuznetsov. But when he played, I don't know. It just, something didn't click. 41 games, 9 goals, 20 assists, 29 points. So again, this is a player who may not be playing for the Capitals by the start of next season. And it's interesting how many of these players on this board, you've got Danault, who's a UFA, may not be playing there. DeBrusk may very well be traded. Does Laine stay here? Does Tarasenko wants out? Kuznetsov, there have been rumors going back to last year that maybe the Caps aren't very happy with him. And again, he's on that COVID protocol list twice, and then there's been rumors of other disciplinary stuff with Kuznetsov. They may be ready to move on from Evgeny. And so we'll see. We'll see if that's the case and what Washington gets back for him, right? Number 5. I don't know if you guys can hear the crow that sounds like it's dying out there, but I swear. Cats are all in the house. Nothing to do with it. Number 5. Going with a flame on this one. That's Sean Monahan. For Sean Monahan, 50 games, 10 goals, 18 assists, 28 points. Sean Monahan, I've seen people say he's overrated. I've seen people say that he's the most likely to get moved. He may very well be likely to get moved if they decide to change out the core. I like Monahan. I don't think he produced at a level that he can. I think the bounce back is there. It's tough, though, because you're kind of wagering then on Calgary having that bounce back. And again, is this a player I've got on the board? Maybe he's not a member of the Calgary Flames once we reach October. But yeah, Monahan, I do like him. I think that, down years happen. I think he bounces back. I think he can be around a point per game. And I mean, maybe not quite, but maybe 70 points in 82 games, maybe 73, 75, somewhere in that region. And so Monahan, again, when I went through all the team scoring, I just picked out guys that I said, that's not enough points for him. I think he can score more than that. Number 4, this is goals related. Number 4 is goals related. So before anybody says anything, when I put the name up, this is about the amount of goals. Timo Meier is a sniper. Timo Meier is a goal scorer in the NHL. And yet, in 54 games, he produced 12 goals, 19 assists, 31 points. The 31 points is not completely out of line with what would be expected. The fact that he only had 12 goals is. Now, maybe he had a season that, he was doing more playmaking than scoring, but I think the finish is still there. I think he can still be a 30-goal scorer, and 12 just looked low to me. There were other members of the Sharks I could have put, but again, this is about who's going to have a bounce-back season. And so while there were others, I saw others that maybe scored low, and I thought, I don't know if he has a bounce back next season. I don't know if that's going to happen. To me, Meier is the most likely in San Jose, who should be, I would think, at a minimum 25 goals. Healthy, and if that consistency's there, I would think a minimum of 25 goals from Timo Meier, right? Number 3, a player who's already been traded in the offseason. And this one just looks weird to put it up here, but Viktor Arvidsson. Viktor Arvidsson had one of those years in Nashville that was just a nightmare. But his underlying numbers, if you're an advanced stats guy, you know where I'm going with this. His underlying numbers were very good. If you looked at all of the other stats in the game, not just the goals and not just the points, which were low at 10 goals, 15 assists, 25 points, he was very productive in terms of helping his team when he was on the ice. It made a big difference as opposed to when he was not on the ice. His line mates were better with him than they were without him. So the overall numbers would tell you that Arvidsson played well and should be due for a bounce back. Combine that with the fact that he's not old. He has had numerous very solid seasons before this one. He absolutely should have a bounce back. Now, the caveat to that could be the fact that he goes to LA, a team that has been goal-starved. So does that mean that his goal scoring doesn't bounce back because he's on a team that doesn't score well? Or does it make it more likely because they're going to put him in more situations to succeed? More power play time, more ice time just in general, 5-on-5. And so for Arvidsson, I think he has a bounce back year. And I don't see any reason why he shouldn't, other than maybe injury. You've got to watch the injured list with him. Number 2, going with a flyer on this one that had a down year. People know I like the player. Liked him since before he was drafted. And that's Travis Konechny. Now, Travis Konechny's numbers this year, it again is a matter of his points weren't awful, but they're not to his level. I think 50 games, 11 goals, 23 assists, 34 points. He can be better than that. The question mark with Konechny is it like DeBrusk? Is this a situation where it's a disagreement between coach and player? Is the team trying to change his style maybe? And again, Konechny might be one of those guys that, it'll be interesting to see how many of these players get moved over the next few months, and then how many of them get moved over the next 12 as movement becomes more liberal. And far more possible. Konechny would be a very popular target if Philly at some point said, you know what, we'll listen to offers on Konechny. Not actively shopping him. A lot of teams would call. Travis Konechny is a very good player, and I think he has a bounce-back season. The 11 goals in 50 games to me is alarming. The 34 points as well. I think Konechny is absolutely capable of more than that. I think the kid's a star. Which brings me to number 1. We're going to Vancouver for number 1. For a player that had about as much of a nightmare season as you can imagine. If you're a Canuck fan, in fact, just in general, people are going to know which name I'm putting up here, and it's Elias Pettersson. Now, Pettersson, if you look at the numbers, 26 games, 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 points. 21 points in 26 games is not bad, but he had a horrible start to the season. And there was some inconsistency issues, and then he's injured, and he's out. And it went day to day. He'll be back soon. Maybe next week. What's that? We don't know who's this Pettersson guy? We've never heard of him. So that's basically how it went from Vancouver during the season. It was a nightmare for him. This is a guy who should be a superstar in the league. I still think he will be. I'm not just saying that because I have 2 Pettersson jerseys. I'm saying it because I really believe Pettersson can be a superstar. And the 21 points in 26 games, not that far off where maybe might have been expected over a full season if he was healthy. The 10 goals seems low. But again, Pettersson has dazzled in his previous seasons at the NHL level, and I think he is still a huge part of the future. And again, Vancouver, it's easy to jump on him and go, oh, this team's terrible, or they're crappy. Yeah, Pettersson was off to a very rough start to the season. Then he starts getting it together, and then he missed a bunch of games. So he ends up missing 30 of their games, and that's a huge hole in the lineup for them. And when he comes back, there's talk about maybe put him on the wing, and that may help him as well. Take some of that pressure off, put him on the wing, give him more freedom out there, and less responsibility than they have as a center. Who knows? Maybe his scoring explodes. We'll see. But there you go. So let me know in the comment section below which forward or defenseman you think will have a bounce-back season. You'll notice there's no defenseman on the bounce-back seasons either. Again, defensemen, I'll do a video on them as well, and or videos on them as well. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.